Good morning, everyone. Lots going on, as usual. So much going on, in fact, we don't even hit COVID until halfway through the show. So, if you're hearing for COVID news, you gotta wait. Fast forward. First, I'm starting with a pure federal politics look. A look at what our cabinet ministers are doing. Some proposals in the House of Commons. There's a decision back on whether the federal government can impose carbon tax on the provinces. So lots to get to. Budget in Ontario. Military tribunals. I was telling you that they're going to have some kind of different oversight thing. There's a different oversight thing. So I'll tell you about all of that before we get into COVID. And how are we going to start? Well, with environmental racism. Some from Catherine McKenna. The industry. I think she's the industry. Hold on. Industry? She is the infrastructure.
And she says, I appreciate
my colleague Xana Lenore's leadership on tackling environmental racism. We need to better understand how pollution disproportionately affects Indigenous peoples, Black and racialized communities, and other marginalized groups so we can address it. Hold on. Do you mean environmental racism, like saying since 2015 you're going to address clean water on Indigenous reserves, and then not doing that, and then saying that you'll have it fixed by March 2021, and then not doing that, right? Because, check the date, which is what I was doing by looking at my wrist. Yeah, they blew through the deadline, and I bet you they'll campaign on it again. I bet you they'll say, oh, this time by 2025, it'll definitely be done by then. Sure, for sure, because we're addressing environmental racism. Yowza, right? Like, do you have any successes from your infrastructure fund? Like from the infrastructure bank that's supposed to create infrastructure from the public-private partnership? Any successes at all? Yes or no? Yes or no? So I'm taking the Pierre Polyev communication course, and it's all basically just him saying yes or no. Okay, Elizabeth May, kooky idea number two. And this is leading to something. Not really. I'm not trying to attack these people for terrible ideas, but people will say that I'm being mean to them. I'm not trying to be mean to them. But I'll show you some
mean things to do to people who are in politics, and why there's a big difference that one is highlighted and one is not. It's very interesting. But anyway, regardless. Elizabeth May says, today, I tabled a private member's bill to lower the voting age to 16. People who start voting young tend to become voters for life, including youth in the democratic process earlier, is a giant step towards a healthier democracy. Press release. It's not a good idea. Why is it not a good idea? Because 16-year-olds have not paid taxes. They don't have income tax to pay. Generally, they haven't been responsible for anything. They haven't purchased anything. They're not a property owner or anything to that effect. They haven't paid rent. They haven't held a job generally, certainly not a full-time job. Some of them can't even go to high school, and that's fine. At 16, you're allowed to be inexperienced. I've talked about this before, right? At 30, go back and talk to a bunch of teenagers and really talk to them. See what they know about the world. Find out that they have giant blind spots that they don't understand because they don't even understand that that's an option. Here's a quick example. A friend of mine who's a doctor, I haven't talked to him in a little while, but regardless, he said to me casually one day, probably in 2015 or something like that, I booked my ticket to, it was Alaska, I think. But it was not Alaska, but it was a northern community, and I can't remember the exact name of it. I booked my ticket there, and I'm going to be looking at the northern lights, blah, 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 blah. And I thought to myself, I had never considered that in the realm of possibility for me to do. Booking a ticket to a remote northern community for any length of time for a vacation or to visit. And this is something that his family has done for a long time. His parents did it. He did it when he was younger. This is like a vacation kind of for him. And I thought that, like, if you don't know that something is possible, and I'm sure that you know that it's possible in the same way that you know that climbing Mount Everest is possible, but it's probably not going to be you that does it, right? If you don't know it's possible for you to do it, then you won't plan it and you won't do it, right? And it's very interesting what experience teaches you. Similarly, you can be told that it's difficult to climb a mountain or to be a parent, but the person on the side of the mountain, this person on the side of Mount Everest looking at the top of Mount Everest in a snowstorm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get to the next camp. I don't know if I'm going to be successful in my summit attempt. That person knows how hard it is to climb a mountain. You could be told, but you don't know. Same as being a parent, right? Like you can be told how rewarding it is, but until you are actually a parent, you could be told in the same way that you could be told about the mountain, right? And so experience counts for a lot. And 16-year-olds don't have the experience to make rational, reasonable choices with regards to voting. No matter how much Elizabeth May wants you to treat them like adults when they're voting and like children when they've committed a crime, right? Here is the actual serious thing that happened to Charlie Angus. He had a situation where, and he tweeted about this. There's like a 9 or 10 tweet, maybe not that many, maybe 4 or 5 tweet thread talking about how his daughter was targeted, how there was an attack website set up, how his daughter's employment was targeted, and he was basically targeted by the cancel culture people because he was standing up to a specific, the We Charity, trying to get to the bottom of it. This is insidious. Me talking about members of Parliament who are making proposals, and me calling them silly. Maybe that's in bad taste, but I'm trying to have a show here, right? Like I am not directly addressing Elizabeth May. Sometimes I'm serious. Sometimes I talk to the camera. But my show is meant to be entertaining. My show is meant to be like a Stephen Colbert or a Jon Stewart style show, which is a bit longer now, but initially it was like 15 minutes, right? It was 15 minutes, quick shots, done, and moving on. But having people frame any criticism of a female or a MP because of their allegiance, because of who they support or the party they support or a BLM association or something to that effect, and saying this is attacking us, you can't do that, and while at the same time allowing what happened to Charlie Angus is a very good example of the double the rules being applying one way and not the other. I can't remember the term. Here, listen to Charlie Angus while I think about the term. Here we go.
They launched an attack website on me, referring to something like 101 lies I've apparently said. I don't lose much sleep over that. I feel kind of like it was very juvenile. I feel like they were trying to stone me in the public square with popcorn. But what concerns me, and I put this to the committee because the issue of our work is serious. The fact that we had to go a full week before where they were actually undermining, their lawyers were claiming that parliamentarians shouldn't even be able to draw witness testimony. I've not been aware of attack websites on members of parliament before. I think it is very concerning. I think it's something, personally, I've been around a long time. I've got pretty tough shoulders, but I think it could certainly intimidate new MPs, and other groups may consider it. But as part of this first issue of privilege, the same time that this attack website was launched on me, a Twitter doxing campaign was launched against my daughter. Her photograph was posted online. Her place of work was posted online. People began to target her employer about my daughter. I actually tried to engage with some of them because they weren't bots, they were real people, and I was trying to say, why are you making stuff up? But what I realized that it was a deliberate disinformation campaign to intimidate me through my daughter, over the fact that when she was 13 years old, she volunteered for a Free the Children event. I don't know that my daughter's 13-year-old behavior, trying to save the world, has anything to do with committee.
So I think that, where am I here? I think that it's interesting when people are putting up websites that are attacking people and their family, and the push is, we've got to have equity and equality and kumbaya, when the reality of this is, if you are in one tent and you get the slightest criticism, people are saying, stop the bullying. And if you're in another tent or acting in an investigatory fashion against people who are have resources, I suppose, then this kind of stuff happens, and it flies under the radar. It doesn't get reported. Here's another one. Alberta government threatens to dissolve Lethbridge police force unless chief shows reform plan in weeks. Alberta's justice minister has given the police chief in Lethbridge a 3-week deadline to produce a plan to shape up the force or see it be dissolved under an extraordinary step by the government, according to letters exclusively obtained by CBC News. Justice Minister K.C. Madhu's letter to Chief Shannon Oh, I can't say that. Sorry that I've definitely got your name wrong. Lethbridge's mayor and the city police commission chair follow recent complaints about the service, including that 6 employees allegedly used police databases to do unauthorized searches of a cabinet minister's personal information on police databases. 2 Lethbridge Police Services officers have already been disciplined for photographing and following Lethbridge West NDP MLA Shannon Phillips while she was an environment minister under the previous NDP government, which was ousted under the Conservative Party in 2019. Both officers were involved in the off-roading community, whose members were upset by the province's plan to restrict off-road vehicles use and create a provincial park in the environmentally sensitive castle areas of southwest Alberta. There's so much crazy stuff that's happening in Canadian politics. It's a wonder that there aren't more people covering it. Like, there is crazy stuff happening. And I mean, just the headline scandals, never mind the unbelievable ideas being shared, the people being targeted. Like, Canada used to be, or maybe I was naive. Maybe I was naive and it was better hidden in the 90s and the early 2000s. But Canada used to be a place where you could politically have a different opinion and be just fine with that, right? Here's we and the Liberals pivot constantly to we're keeping Canadians safe. We're spending what we need to protect Canadians and small businesses and all of this other stuff. So whenever they're given a question that remotely gets close to that, they go onto that framework. Here's a good example of that. Here's Michael Barrett talking about giving billions of dollars or $500 million to we, $500 million to we, and the Prime Minister pivoting on that. Here we go.
For Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Well, whether it's destroyed documents with the BC Liberals, the gas plant scandal with the McGuinty Liberals, or the SNC-Lavalin scandal with these Liberals, what do they all have in common? Well, it's the senior advisor to the Prime Minister, Ben Chin. That's the same Ben Chin that Craig Kielburger thanked for helping to shape the CSSG in the We scandal. So is the Prime Minister blocking the testimony of Ben Chin because he has dirt on the Liberal elite from coast to coast to coast?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am stunned that the Conservative opposition continues to talk about the We charity in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of the concerns that Canadians have about rebuilding our economy in terms of the work that we're doing together. While Conservatives continue to focus on us, continue to focus on politics, we will stay focused on supporting Canadians. We will be focused on the families that need support, the small businesses that need help across the country, the jobs that will be created through fighting climate change. These are priorities for Liberals the Conservatives don't seem to get at all.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Well, I agree with the Prime Minister that he is stunned. We also agree that they should be focused as a government on helping Canadians instead of helping insider Liberals. They gave $500 million to a company that gave members of the Prime Minister's family $500,000. They shut down Parliament, locked out committees, filibustered at committees. So the question is very simple. Will the Prime Minister let Ben Chin testify at committee, or is that the only job that he's looking to protect?
Ben Chin won't testify. Sorry, not going to happen. They don't answer questions. They don't like. Yikes, right? Sorry about that. It's a Liberal thing. It's a Liberal thing. You wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get it. Along with their economic policy. And yeah, lots of other things about being a Liberal that a majority of Canadians don't get. Commons votes 272 by 61 votes to reject the NDP bill to fix climate change targets in federal law. We are running out of time, they say, but they reject it. So that's not going to be in federal law. However, yesterday the Supreme Court to rule today on whether a carbon tax is constitutional. And what do you guys think? Yeah, of course they ruled it. Of course they said it was, right? Yes, it is. Of course it is. Yep. Definitely constitutional to tax people more for the air. Please ignore that more than decade-long experiment in BC that did not meaningfully reduce carbon at all and, in fact, just created a shadow economy with a carbon swap. Right? This is all this is about. Cash money. Okay, Global News says the Supreme Court has given the federal government the constitutional green light to impose a carbon tax on provinces. I knew I would use this. Okay, audio only. This is the meeting number. This is meeting from Monday, March 22nd, 2021. And apparently there are a bunch of these. And this is the Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure of the Standing Committee on Health. And I listen to stuff like this. I like stuff like this. I have stuff like this backed up on my computer. And sometimes they have little tidbits and audio about, I like the wonky workings of government. I don't know why. I'm weird like that. I like very wonky things. Wonky is like policy. I'll read it and say, well, the policy says this, so how come you're doing that? And then everybody gets really uncomfortable because to change the policy, that's hard, right? You can just do something, and if nobody questions it, then you say past practice. But if somebody says, the policy says this, then you have to explain yourself. That's why I like to read it. Anyway, these meetings are gold for people conversing and having lots of interesting insights into what they're thinking. And I love to have stuff like that too, because I'm interested. Because I'm a little crazy. Sorry about your luck, but I am. Who would do this every day, right? Who would do this every day? Oh, Canada. Anyway, here's the audio from that Monday, March 22nd meeting on the Standing Committee on Health, on the procedure of the Standing Committee on Health. Yeah, weird, right? The whole thing. Isn't that weird? The whole thing. It's gone. Poof. The Ministry of Truth, man. The Ministry of Truth got to it before we could get to it, right? The Ministry of Truth. And so that's the world we live in. Just, we have always been at war with your Australia, right? Just don't question it. Just don't question it. Moving into the military. Acting CDS General Wayne Eyre has just posted a letter announcing Operation Honor is over. Many victims of sexual misconduct I've talked to say it was poisoned after allegations were made against Brass, who led the effort. Unclear what will replace it. General Eyre says the military will embrace external recommendations, including an independent reporting chain. Defense Minister and Prime Minister still haven't said if this will be to Parliament, as it is in many allied countries. So they're reforming this. Who do you trust most to reform this, right? The guys who knew since 2018 about these allegations against General Vance, gave him a raise anyway. Those are the guys. Those are the best guys to do it, right? Yeah, sure. 2018, that was a long time ago. Whoops, sorry. Moving on, carrying on. Okay, today at 4 p.m., moving into the Ontario budget. Mr. Peter Bellafalvanley, I've said his name terribly wrong. I'm sorry, sir. And he says, I will present the budget. I will stand at Queen's Park to release the 2021 budget. And here is some selected media. The Toronto Star highlights the Ontario budget for its readers with a photo of the unelected leader of the third party. Who's that? Del Duca? Del Duca sounds like a Star Wars name, right? Like he's the rogue person, the Star Wars stranger, or anyway, it doesn't matter. It's one of those things where it's a soft push because they know Doug Ford is not popular, and who's going to fill that big empty center hole? And I don't think it's the Liberals. Are the Liberals going to sell us on the Biden plan, hide in your basement for 8 months, and then take the lead late in the evening, right? Is that what's going to happen? Who knows? The Ford government's 2021 budget brings cash payouts for businesses and parents frustrated by lockdowns and school closures with no end to deficits until potentially 2 elections from now. My story. Apparently, they're giving $400 to every child in Canada, regardless of the parents' socioeconomic status. Everybody gets $400. I think they're playing this to set up the schools. That's kind of what I think is happening. The reason I think that, I've got the school thing later. There's a whole section on schools today. Carrying on with the budget, Ontario's debt projected to surpass $500 billion by 2023-24. Yay, $503 trillion, or trillion, $500 billion, $503 billion. That's the debt. The deficit is 31 billion and 21 billion over, depending on which year you're talking about. That's what they're talking about. And I thought we had a higher deficit than that, but I guess that's federally. We've got the $300 billion deficit and the $2 trillion debt federally. And then provincially, we've got $33 billion deficit and a $400 billion debt. And sorry that it sounds like statistics a little bit. I can visualize that, but it's not easy for a lot of people to visualize that with audio. So I apologize for that. So here's the Financial Post article. Again, this is like baseball statistics a little bit, but it's quick. So Ontario budget sees years of red ink to come as Ford government targets expansion over austerity. And I've said this before, Ford government, this conservative government wants to grow into the debt instead of bringing the austerity in to shrink the spending. They just want to grow into the debt. I don't know that that's the right move, but austerity is not popular, and as soon as you say austerity, people will be calling for, the political knives and all that. So what are you going to do, right? The Ontario government may not run a balanced budget for nearly another decade, at least according to Premier Doug Ford's latest financial blueprint, as the economic and fiscal effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on Canada's most populous province are set to linger for years. Ontario's 2021 budget, tabled Wednesday at Queen's Park by Finance Minister Peter Bethenfalvy, oh, I've got it so bad. I'm sorry about my name pronunciation. Forecasts the provincial government will run a $33.1 billion deficit for its coming fiscal year, following a $38.5 billion shortfall for its 2020-2021, which ends March 31st. So we're in that for another 6 days. The province then projects a deficit of $27 billion in 2022-23 and $20 billion in 23-24. A return to pre-COVID deficit won't happen until 27-28 under the province's planning projections, which also show Ontario will not balance its budget again until 2029-30, when its recovery plan projects a $900 million surplus. Significant uncertainty still remains about future economic growth, which may impact the projections further, the budget states. Bethenfalvy and Ontario's progressive conservative government say they are counting on economic growth to help keep the province's finances sustainable, rather than trying to do so by hiking taxes or slashing public services. Yet the considerable deficits that the province will run for the foreseeable future are further signs of the severe toll the COVID-19 has taken on the government finances. The arrival of the pandemic has prompted the public sector to ratchet up spending to support people and businesses at a time when tax revenues are also under pressure, creating significant shortfalls the governments are bridging with debt. Aha, more debt. More debt we're saddled with. Ontario taxpayers deserve to see a plan to get the province's finances in order, and the Ford government's refusal to present a concrete plan is simply unacceptable. These guys are they want something specific. This is Canadian Taxpayers Federation. They say Ontario taxpayers deserve to see a plan to get the province's finances in order, and the Ford government's refusal to present a concrete plan is simply unacceptable. The number one thing we were looking for in the budget was a credible plan to deal with the deficit. Ontarians can't just ignore their credit card bills, and the province shouldn't either. The Ford government needs to offer an achievable plan to balance the budget in the medium term. Taxpayers can't wait. The Ontario deficit is now $33.1 billion, while total spending is down by $4.2 billion from last year. Spending for 2021-22 is up by $2.7 billion from what the government projected that expenses would be this year in its budget presented in November 2020. Interest charges on the debt will cost Ontario taxpayers $13.1 billion this year. Ontarians will spend over $1 billion per month on debt interest payments this year, said Goldberg. That's more than Ontario spends on post-secondary education. If finance interest rates increase in the years ahead, debt interest payments will skyrocket even further. And that's kind of what happens, right? No refund. Moving into, this is kind of bridging COVID with our spending, but no refund on $720 million worth of pandemic ventilators feds bought but didn't need. Minister Anita Oakville. I'm very, very concerned with this issue myself. Sole source contract went to Thornhill Medical, North York, CAE Inc. in Montreal, and Baylis in Montreal. And that's interesting. We've talked about that before, and the connections to the Liberals, etc. before, just to one of those companies, I believe, but there could be others. And here's another one, $700 million. Yeah, this is the same one, $700 million on ventilators that 98% remain warehoused. Okay, at the beginning, I was going to start with this because I think this is a big news story, but who knows? Canada says AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine is safe, but adds blood clot warning. Canada's Health Department on Wednesday continues to back the AstraZeneca PLC's COVID-19 vaccine, even as it updates its label to provide information on rare blood clots associated with a low platelet count following an immunization shot. Health Canada said it has not received any reports of these blood clots to date. In Canada, which is using AstraZeneca, doses manufactured at the Serum Institute of India, has received 500,000 COVID Shield doses and expects to get 1.5 million more by May. The warning label informs people to seek immediate medical attention if they develop shortness of breath, chest pain, leg swelling, or persistent abdominal pain following the AstraZeneca shot. So that's interesting. This was reported 12 hours ago, so this is like 11 p.m. yesterday. And this is 6:30 p.m. yesterday. Annemie Paul calls for AstraZeneca vaccine pilot to be extended to racialized communities. I wonder if she'd say the same this morning. Yowza, right? Yowza. I don't know. I understand that she's trying to advocate for good. I don't think that advocating for prioritizing by race is a good thing unless you have solid evidence that said race is at a higher potential for being medically incapacitated or something like that. I think it's better to focus on people who are at risk rather than what color their skin is. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's a racist statement. I thought the Chappelle show was funny, and I laughed at most of those episodes. Is that cancel time? Are you going to cancel me now? My goodness. Okay, if you're 75 or over in North York, this was sent yesterday at 6:41 p.m. If you're 75 or over in North York or Scarborough, please book your appointment at Centennial College or Seneca College. We have appointments available tomorrow at both sites. We have our own booking link below. Great facilities, no lines, friendly staff. Isn't that odd? Where's the demand? Where's the demand? I don't know, but I wouldn't be lining up. I wouldn't be going to places with no lines either. Where's the demand? There's a lot of chairs here and they're spaced out, but there's nobody here. This is weird. Here is Diana Murphy, and she says she officially requested her vaccine date to be moved up to the Pfizer recommended 21 days. She was denied. You should request the same. Get yourself on record. Maybe if enough people do this, they'll give in. So I think that's an interesting move. When a lot of the people who took the first dose took it, they were under the impression they were going to be following the manufacturer's dosing schedule, and now they're not. So what kind of recourse do you have? There's so much stuff that's happening that I view life sometimes as you're going quickly down a ski hill. You're on some toboggan or skis or something to that effect, but you're going down a ski hill very fast, and there are lots of trees. And you spend a lot of your time either dodging or looking out for trees. And sometimes you get smucked by a tree. Sometimes you just get hit by a little tree or, conked in the head. But your sleigh keeps going, and generally you stay on it. If you stay off, or if you fall off the sleigh, I think that means maybe the game's over, right? But life is continually looking for and dodging trees. And if you get smucked, it's nursing the injury while continuing to look for and dodge trees. And so I think that it is very interesting how much stuff happens that is up the hill, right? And you can't stop time and say, hold on, this has violated me. We need to go back and fix that. It doesn't work like that, right? And so as you hurtle down the hill of life, there's all sorts of stuff that's happened. And we used to have protections, checks and balances that if there was something that happened, you could have a path to fixing it. And it was long and arduous and annoying and difficult because paths to fixing things like that are. But it seems like the paths to fixing the things like this are less and less viable these days. And I don't know why. I know why. So when they change the rules like this, you got smucked and you got to keep going, right? And it's wild. Here is children. This is Daily Mail. Children will be vaccinated from August. And this guy's saying why. So I think it's interesting as well how they're kind of they're using a generic term for 3 different vaccines. Like the COVID vaccine encapsulates AstraZeneca and Moderna and Pfizer. And I just think that's strange. Government health paying influencers to say nice things in social media after department faulted for pandemic mismanagement. Minor celebrities will build the department's credibility and must not tarnish the Health Canada's or the Government of Canada's reputation. These are documents gotten by Holly Doan, Blacklock's reporter. And my check is late, Patty Haydu. So minor Canadian. They got Jonah from Jonah Vision to be like, guys, I love getting my shot. Oh, the cap's on. I know. I think this kind of stuff is such a waste of money. It's such a ridiculous, this is a good example of things that I'm laughing at, but people should be held accountable for this. Why are we letting Health Canada use influencers? I've used influencers. I run an ad budget in my off time because, that's what you do, right? You run an ad budget. So I run an ad budget, and part of my ad budget is influencers. And I've used influencers, I don't know, probably, let's say 6 months out of 12 months last year. Let's just say that. And the influencers were crap. They were expensive, and they were a waste of money. Because you can see right through somebody who's like, oh, I just got this wonderful pen from wherever this is, and this pen is amazing and blah, blah. They don't know what the F they're talking about most of the time, right? They just, I'm going to review this thing. It's like nobody would watch your review unless they were just watching for other reasons. Anyway, regardless, I think it's very, very, very a poor use of money. Anyway, if you had $500 to spend on ads, influencers are like the sixth thing that I would recommend. And I would probably say don't use the influencers. Better to buy Google ads if they'll let you on Google ads. And so it's interesting to me how just terribly our graphic designer of a health minister is managing things, but not surprising, right? Not surprising. I'm not surprised, but it's what's surprising, I suppose, is the full-blown PR team and money for PR for a coronavirus, right? If you take away all of the radio commercials, the television commercials, the COVID monster from Alberta, if you remove the masking and the distancing and the announcements from the radio, if all that's left is the symptoms and the people being sick, the pandemic goes away. So it needs a PR campaign. It needs the money, because without the money, people would stop. Without the fear being injected, people would stop. I think. I could be wrong. Maybe the people are looking for full permission. They're never going to get it. Never going to get full permission to live your life. You have to take it. Your tax dollars moving into schools. Your tax dollars in union blackmail at work, funding child abuse at Toronto Catholic District School Board. Don't worry, the kids will still need to wear their moldy masks all day long and still eat in silence. Here is a note from the Toronto District School Board. It says, "Dear parents, hope you had a great day. Just wanted to pass along some good news. The Toronto District School Board has ordered plastic plexi dividers for all of our classrooms. These dividers will provide an extra level of protection in addition to the layered safety protocols that our teacher staff continue to enforce. These dividers should arrive at our school on March 29th. I will ensure that they are set up in each classroom as soon as they arrive. As always, thank you for your partnership and collaboration during these stressful times." Man, how do you get to tender that contract, eh? Whew. Plastic dividers for desks. Here's Stephen Lisi, and he says, to enhance connectivity for students and educators, Premier Ford Nation is investing $40 million in new funding to improve remote learning connectivity and tech. $400 per kid, regardless of parental income. Buy your kid a tablet so they can go to school. That's going to be the new push. This builds on our plan to connect all schools this September. Server farms are cheaper than school buildings, and they don't need custodians, right? But the parents aren't able to be home to watch their kids. And if they are able to be home to watch their kids, what's that suicide rate like again? How many more? 4 times more people and more kids in the ICU or in hospital due to failed attempts? Wild. That's just off the top of my head, but I have a link for that if you're interested. Here's Lisa, and she says, let's try this again. This was last fall. Something changed. Let's follow the money. S. Felicie, Ontario Education. Why isn't sick kids speaking out now on the extreme restrictions on kids? This is, I think this is 2021. And hold on. In the top tweet, the Kristen Rushoe says, to reduce risk when schools reopen, sick kids, says masks should not be required for kids, not practical and improper use likely, says hand washing important on physical distancing, says desks separated, no large assemblies, but could be some close interaction and play. And in the bottom one, it says expert at sick kids say imperative that Ontario schools reopen in the fall with safety precautions in place. So when they say safety precautions in place, that's kind of muddy, so you can kind of deny the specifics, right? But the specifics are, I fear that they're going to continue with the masking, and that's terrible. Here's CTV Toronto. Multiple teachers' unions and their members are increasingly in need of leaves of absence due to mounting stress and burnout stemming from the health crisis. I think that it's interesting. How much time off did grocery store workers get? They see a lot more people, right? Like, you get 30 kids in a classroom, sure, but how many people go through the checkout in a grocery store? Right? Like, why are we making teachers into this class that's somehow not essential, but weirdly essential, and they'll force kids to go to school in their house online? And why are so many parents just fine with this? Where are the studies that say this is any good at all? Where are the studies that say this isn't damaging my child? Where are the studies that say developmentally this is as good as being in class? Without those, nope. And even with those, nope. Sorry, not a chance. Not on a snow day, not on a rain day, not on a wind day, not on a cold day, not even if hell freezes over, not a chance, not happening. Not to my kids. And I don't understand why more people aren't standing up and saying, like, we have evidence that this is bad. But I mean, the evidence doesn't matter. You have to understand the evidence doesn't matter. I understand the evidence doesn't matter too. I get it. I understand every time I go up against these groups of people, these boards of health, these boards of education, etc., that I'm going to lose. You have to understand that I know that already. I get it, okay? I've lost before I've started. The point isn't to win. The point is to show you that you will lose. And the point is to show you that that's happening. I don't want to show you to disenfranchise you, to make you feel like it's pointless. I want to show you because it doesn't matter the evidence. It doesn't matter how articulate you are. It doesn't matter that you play by their rules. You'll lose. And that needs to change. We need to be able to talk about this. We need to be able to identify problems. The same issue that was happening in the 2019 election is happening now, but it's worse now because they've gotten away with it for so long. Now they can silence people who they don't want to deal with. Yours truly. Fine, try. I'll keep coming. And not in a malicious way, these people have a responsibility to hear people who disagree with them. It's their job. Sorry, if you don't like it, get a different job. Okay, every death is a terrible tragedy, but for those who claim the kids are at risk from COVID-19, according to StatsCan, there were 5 deaths in the 0 to 19 and 157,000 documented cases. Kids are not at risk. This is also backed up by tons of medical literature. The cases don't matter. The data does not matter. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They have started their whatever this is, and they're not going to stop it now. And there are a lot of people who aren't willing to stand up for their kids, aren't willing to stand up for themselves, aren't able to even get to the point where they know that they're supposed to be doing that at this point in time, right? How could you know? How could you? Here is Iowa. Iowa School District removes the mask mandate in classroom for students and staff. That's a news article, WGN-TV. So, interesting, right? Very interesting. Anthony Fury says, here's Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel tried to implement a hard lockdown. They were going to lock down Germany, including essential businesses. Everything was going to be locked down 5 days over Easter. Sorry about your luck, Germany. There's a new variant. And then Germany was like, no, not happening, Angela. And then Angela Merkel says, the mistake is mine alone. Chancellor Angela Merkel asks citizens for forgiveness about backtracking on Easter lockdown. Oh, please don't punish my party politically. We've done such a good job at importing all sorts of people and destroying the lovely, lovely country we had. I just don't understand the Western leaders and the push to import everybody from around the world. I've talked about this before. The immigration policies, all of that doesn't make a lot of sense within the context of things, but this is outside of what I'm talking about now. Okay. Here is Elders Without Borders. Elders Without Borders is possibly a bad name because I got this and I was like, well, I don't know what this is. But what this is here's Adam Skelly's from Adamson Barbecue, the legal papers. This is, what is that lawyer's name? Hold on a second here. Okay, they're working with this lawyer and I believe Michael Winwood. I think that's his name. And so they've got the Adam Scully Adamson Barbecue case, and this one, as the COVID-19 protocols and preventative measures continue to roll out, harm and injury remain open-ended. At this stage, the categories within the claim represent groups of people such as business owners, individuals with extraordinary needs, single parents, and parents all affected in various ways as a result of the COVID-19 protocols and preventative measures. At this preliminary stage, these categories are evolving as the picture of the harms becomes more clear. So you can read these legal documents, just download them. And they're standing tall for children as well. It says, is your child or children suffering harms from the COVID mandates in school? Are your children's mask exemptions not being honored at school? Are your children suffering mentally, physically, emotionally from the COVID mandates? If you answered yes to any of these questions, please submit an intake form for the children's class action here. And they list all of the boards of education in Ontario. So it's very, very on topic if you're interested in addressing this. I think that, here it is. There we go, Dr. Rainier Fulmark. You can watch his YouTube stuff here as well, and Lawyers for Truth. So I'm tentatively cautiously optimistic, but again, I've seen a year of suits and planned actions, and not a whole lot of meaningful results from that. Now, courts are a very slow process, and I understand that too. But it's very difficult to have kids being locked up and masked up at school, locked up in their homes if they have a cough, or if they're in a class with a kid who has a cough. I mean, come on, what wild and crazy world do we live in? Okay, so continuing on, Global News is reporting the international traveler, a 45-year-old Edmonton man, was charged with knowingly using a forged document. Traveler charged after allegedly presenting a fake COVID-19 test. Aha, we've entered forgery territory, which means people aren't afraid of the virus anymore. They just want to get on with their lives, in my opinion. I already talked about this. Merkel to reverse her Easter lockdown. So that's pretty good. That's good to hear, I think. The people have more power than they think they do. If you're in Bitcoin, very likely the US will outlaw Bitcoin. So if you're in Bitcoin in Canada, I would consider that your warning. I would consider that a shot across the bow. I would consider that potentially time to pull your stuff. That's what they want. They want, if they make Bitcoin illegal across the Western world, then the access to it becomes minimal. And so the growth has to slow down necessarily because it's now illegal, right? So I don't know if they'll implement fines or what, but your money is your money to do with what you like, so long as you do what they want you to do, right? Don't buy too much GameStop, don't buy too much silver, and don't you dare buy Bitcoin, right? It's coming. That's my prediction. What was the Johnny Carson thing? He had the prediction. He's like the envelope. He's like, oh, terrible. And the Fingermen. Did you guys watch V for Vendetta recently? I watched V for Vendetta not too long ago. The whole thing was because of a virus. Very interesting. Here is the Fingermen were the guys in England who were empowered to be the health enforcement arm, right? And Matt Hancock, who is the UK, I think he's one of the health ministers. He's the UK Secretary of State for Health and Social Care and MP for West Suffolk in the United Kingdom. And he says on the 1st of April, we will formally establish the new UK Health Security Agency. The UK HSA will be this country's permanent standing capacity to plan, prevent, and respond to external threats to health. Because they've done such a great job in the last year, let's enshrine that. You know what, guys? Let's make this permanent. We've got to keep this infrastructure. Whoo, baby, you got your mask? Let's go. My goodness, we have lost our way. And like this is theater. This is we're selling safety, and it's not for your safety. Right? That's the point. An enforcement arm for health? We're taking you to this prison for your safety. Reverend, you are in jail for 5 weeks because you refused to listen to our health edict. But this person who abused children sexually 6 times, we have to let him out because of COVID. This is what we want to make permanent. This is what these people are talking about. And I think that what happens in the UK, what happens in Australia, we watched it come here, right? We watched it come here. Not the collapsing in the streets. That didn't happen in the UK and Australia. That happened in China. That didn't come here, right? And it didn't happen in the UK. It didn't happen in Australia. And it didn't happen here. But hey, we locked down just like them. We didn't weld people shut. No, but we're making the prison much more personal. The masking, all of that. And it is a prison you carry around with you. My goodness, it's terrible. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. All right, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. One last thing, just show notes. If you're interested in Canada report. If you're interested in what's going on with the Wellington Dufferin Public Health Board, you can get all the up-to-date stuff. So on March 16th, there was a letter. March 23rd, there was a letter. March 16th, they sent me a letter that said that we don't recommend isolation of healthy children if they're high-risk contacts. We don't do that in this health unit. No order was issued. And I found out through Anthony Fury's reporting and through other means. I had another person that I knew had received the letter that I was told by the health unit didn't exist because they didn't have an order that said that. So that's interesting. So I responded here. They responded to me yesterday. That was the 23rd or the 24th, I guess. So it should be 24th. And then today I responded back to them. So we've got, there's lots of communication happening. If you're interested in finding that out, the link is here. Well, I guess I should have like a page that encapsulates this. I was going to write a book and I was going to call it Loser. And I was going to encapsulate the health board thing and the Upper Grand District case study and just put it together. Like Loser, a story of how to talk to boards of education and boards of health, knowing that you're going to lose. No? We'll see. I'm fleshing it out. We're working on it. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.